In early 2025, Arabica coffee futures hit an all-time record of $4.41 per pound, a 79% surge in a single year. Brazil had just endured its most severe drought in 70 years. Vietnam suffered devastating floods that slashed Robusta production by 20%. 3 consecutive years of global deficits had drained stockpiles to critical levels, and the climate projections were worse. A study published in PLOS One concluded that by 2050, 56% of the land currently suitable for Arabica coffee will no longer be suitable. In the hottest growing regions, that number reaches 80%. The global coffee market hit $245 billion in 2024. Consumption is at a 20-year high. This is an industry built on a crop that is actively losing the land it needs to survive. And yet, growing in sidewalk cracks and backyard gardens across 6 continents, 2 plants have been quietly producing a dark, bitter, coffee-like beverage for longer than coffee itself has existed. 0 caffeine, 0 beans, and 0 cost after 1 harvest. Welcome back to Garden Explained with Harry. Click that subscribe button. Now let us begin. Walk into Café du Monde in the heart of New Orleans tonight. Sit at one of those small tables under the green and white striped awning. Order the café au lait. Powdered sugar from the beignets drifts across your tray. The coffee is dark, rich, and heavy. But there is something in the flavor you cannot quite place, something roasted and earthy that is not coffee at all. Mixed into every cup at that counter since 1862 is the ground root of a blue-flowered perennial that grows wild across Europe, Asia, and North America. This is chicory, Cichorium intybus. Now step outside, look down at the cracked sidewalk along Decatur Street. That bright yellow flower growing between the concrete slabs, the one children pick and blow the seeds from, is the second half of this story. The roasted taproot of the common dandelion produces a dark beverage so close to coffee in color and bitterness that it fooled entire European nations for centuries. Taraxacum officinale, the most sprayed weed on every suburban lawn, is also the most overlooked coffee substitute on the planet. Together, these 2 roots do something remarkable. Chicory yields 45 to 65% soluble extractive matter when brewed. Coffee yields only 20 to 25%. Less root produces a stronger cup. Dandelion adds a smooth, earthy body with caramel notes that deepen during roasting. Blended, they deliver a cup that rivals the best dark roast sitting on your kitchen shelf right now. To understand what these 2 roots actually are, you need to understand the world they come from. The history of chicory is older than coffee itself. The ancient Egyptians cultivated chicory more than 5,000 years ago. They did not grow it for beverages. Coffee would not be discovered for millennia. They used chicory as medicine and food. The Roman poets Horace, Virgil, and Ovid wrote about eating chicory as part of their daily diet. Pliny the Elder documented its healing properties in his Natural History. For thousands of years across the Mediterranean basin, this plant was as common as bread. Then, coffee arrived in Europe. The story of these roots entered a pattern that would repeat itself across centuries, across wars, and across continents. In the 1760s, King Frederick the Great of Prussia declared economic war on the coffee bean. He believed imported coffee was bleeding German wealth dry. In 1766, he imposed a royal monopoly on all coffee imports, and he banned private citizens from roasting beans at home. He hired a squad of government agents known as coffee smellers. Their only job was to patrol the streets of Berlin, sniffing for the telltale aroma of illegally roasted coffee. Germans had no choice. They turned to roasted barley, dried figs, and chicory root. The root worked. It worked so well that chicory farming became an established industry across northern Germany and the Netherlands. 40 years later, Napoleon pushed things further. In 1806, he imposed the Continental System, a massive trade embargo against Britain that choked off coffee imports across most of Europe. Millions of people in France, Germany, and the Low Countries who could no longer find or afford coffee beans discovered chicory root as their daily drink. Here is what matters most. Even after Napoleon fell and coffee ships returned to European ports, the French people never fully abandoned chicory. The taste had woven itself into their culture. It stayed. The same pattern appeared in America. By 1840, the port of New Orleans was the second largest coffee importer in the United States. Ships arrived daily loaded with beans from Central and South America. Then, the Civil War broke out. Union naval blockades sealed the port completely. Coffee vanished from Louisiana store shelves overnight. Desperate families, many of them descendants of French colonists in the Bayou country, revived the old practice of roasting chicory root and stretching whatever coffee remained. When the war ended and coffee returned, every other American city went back to pure coffee. But New Orleans never did. Over 160 years later, chicory is still in every cup at Café du Monde. This pattern repeated during the Great Depression when American families stretched their coffee with chicory once more. It happened again in Britain during World War I when the naval blockade made coffee a luxury few could afford. Every single time the coffee supply chain breaks, humanity rediscovers these roots. Every single time the supply chain is restored, the industry quietly buries them again. Now here's the part where the story shifts from history to something the coffee industry genuinely does not want you to understand. Chicory root contains a compound called inulin. On a dry weight basis, chicory root is between 70 and 80% inulin. That is the highest concentration of this compound found in any plant species ever measured on Earth. Inulin is a soluble dietary fiber made of fructose chains that human digestive enzymes cannot break down. It passes through the stomach completely intact. It arrives in the large intestine where it selectively feeds beneficial bacteria. This is the clinical definition of a prebiotic. Over the past 20 years, more than 150 human intervention studies have been published on chicory root fiber. 45 of those studies specifically examined the prebiotic effect on gut bacteria across every age group, from infants to the elderly. This is not fringe science. This is one of the most thoroughly researched plant fibers in all of nutritional literature. A 4-week clinical trial involving 44 adults with chronic constipation found that 12 grams of chicory inulin per day significantly increased bowel frequency and improved stool consistency. A separate 2-month study of 49 women with type 2 diabetes found that 10 grams of inulin per day produced measurable decreases in both fasting blood sugar and hemoglobin A1C compared to a placebo group. In 2024, a meta-analysis reviewing 32 randomized controlled trials concluded that inulin supplementation reduced body mass index, total fat mass, and waist circumference across diverse populations. Picture walking into a pharmacy and finding a single product on the shelf that improves digestion, stabilizes blood sugar, and helps manage weight. You would expect to pay a premium price. This compound grows beneath park benches and along highway medians for free. Now consider the dandelion root growing right beside it. The European Scientific Cooperative on Phytotherapy, the body that sets herbal medicine standards across Europe, has officially certified dandelion root as a restorer of hepatic and biliary function. A 2025 review published in the journal Pharmaceuticals confirmed that taraxasterol, a compound abundant in dandelion root, modulates the inflammatory and oxidative stress pathways responsible for liver damage. Additional pharmacological research has demonstrated that dandelion extracts protect against chemical liver toxins through both antioxidant and anti-inflammatory mechanisms. The prebiotic oligofructans in dandelion root also reduce fat accumulation in liver tissue and calm chronic inflammation. These are not trace compounds hiding in negligible amounts. These are dominant bioactive molecules present in significant concentrations throughout the roots of both plants. When you brew roasted chicory and dandelion root together, these compounds dissolve into the water, creating a naturally rich beverage that contains zero caffeine, no sugar, no fat, and delivers beneficial compounds with every cup. 1 cup of this blend provides prebiotic fiber and liver-supporting compounds at the same time. No other widely available coffee substitute on Earth does both simultaneously in the same natural package. Think about that for a moment. Every other coffee alternative either provides energy through caffeine with documented dependency effects, or provides stimulation through synthetic compounds, or provides flavor with no biological benefit whatsoever. Chicory and dandelion root provide a dark, satisfying, coffee-like beverage while actively delivering documented prebiotic, anti-inflammatory, and metabolic support compounds. That is a category of 1. Neither of these roots contains a single milligram of caffeine. Now consider what caffeine actually does to the human body. A 2024 survey by the National Coffee Association found that 67% of American adults reported drinking coffee in the past day. The IFIC Spotlight survey confirmed that 88% of Americans consume caffeine, with almost half consuming it multiple times per day. Surveys from the Sleep Foundation show that 30% of daily caffeine users report elevated anxiety. 31% report insomnia. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors in the brain. It temporarily masks fatigue without resolving it. When the effect fades, the tiredness returns deeper than before. The body demands another cup, then another, then another. A dependency cycle built into every sip. Chicory and dandelion do not mask anything. They nourish the gut microbiome, they protect liver cells, they stabilize blood sugar, and they create zero dependency. You can stop drinking them tomorrow and feel nothing at all. Try that with your morning espresso. But here is where the simple optimism of this story has to confront the economics honestly. The question is not whether these plants work. The question is why the world forgot about them. And the answer is not conspiracy. The answer is economic structure. The global coffee market was valued at $245 billion in 2024. Projections place it at $381 billion by 2034. The industry directly supports over 25 million farmers worldwide. 67% of American adults drink coffee every single day. That rate is at a 20-year high. This is not merely a beverage category. This is a global economic engine. Every participant in the chain, from plantation workers in Colombia to baristas in Brooklyn to pension fund managers on Wall Street, needs you to keep buying beans. Coffee is an annual crop that requires constant maintenance. Roasted beans go stale within weeks. The entire business model depends on repeat purchase, constant consumption, recurring revenue flowing quarter after quarter without interruption. Chicory is a perennial. Plant it once in your garden and harvest roots from the same crown for years. Dandelion self-seeds with such ferocity that most municipalities classify it as an invasive species. Neither requires replanting. Neither generates repeat purchases. Neither creates a revenue stream that any corporation can capture or any shareholder can profit from. The research funding tells the same story. Those 150 human studies on Chicory inulin were funded primarily by European agricultural boards and prebiotic ingredient manufacturers, not by Starbucks, not by Folgers, not by Nestle. No coffee brand will ever fund a study concluding that their product is unnecessary. Dandelion research flows from university labs in South Korea, Germany, and Eastern China, not from the companies charging you $5 for a latte every morning. The branding problem is obvious. Coffee is aspirational, with sleek packaging and morning rituals photographed for social media. Chicory is associated with wartime rationing and poverty. Dandelion is a weed that homeowners spend hundreds of dollars trying to kill every spring. No venture capital firm writes checks for weeds. No marketing team builds campaigns around a plant people poison with herbicide. What grows for free cannot be sold at scale. What self-seeds cannot generate seed revenue. What needs no processing cannot generate processing margins. The system that promotes profitable crops simply ignores the free ones. But you do not need the system. You can grow both of these plants yourself, and it is remarkably simple. Chicory thrives in United States Department of Agriculture hardiness zones 3 through 10. That covers nearly all of the continental United States and equivalent climates across Europe. It tolerates poor, rocky soil. It tolerates drought once established. It tolerates total neglect. Sow seeds directly into the ground in spring after your last frost date. Space plants about 30 centimeters apart. Blue flowers appear in the first summer. Harvest the thick tap roots. In fall of the second year, when inulin concentration peaks, cut the foliage back. The plant regrows from its crown the following spring without any help from you. Dandelion is even easier. It is almost certainly already growing in your yard. Choose a harvesting spot away from busy roads and pesticide-treated areas. Use a garden fork to loosen the soil around the base of the plant. Pull up the entire taproot. Roots harvested in spring tend to be sweeter and milder. Roots harvested in fall are richer and more bitter, closer to a true dark roast flavor profile. Process both roots the same way. Wash them thoroughly under running water. Chop into small uniform pieces. Spread them across a baking sheet in a single layer. Roast at 175 degrees Celsius for 30 to 60 minutes until they turn deep chocolate brown and snap cleanly when bent. During roasting, the inulin in the roots caramelizes and converts into fructose. That chemical transformation is what creates the rich sweetness without a single grain of added sugar. Grind the cooled roasted pieces in any standard coffee grinder. Brew with a French press, a drip machine, or a simple pour over. 2 parts roasted chicory to 1 part roasted dandelion makes a reliable starting blend. Adjust the ratio to match your own taste. Some prefer more dandelion for a smoother cup. Some prefer more chicory for a sharper bite. One growing season produces enough dried root to last a full year of daily cups. The chicory regrows from its crown every spring. The dandelion drops thousands of seeds across your soil every autumn. Next year, both return without a single action from you. The year after that, they return again and again. One planting decision made on a single afternoon creates a permanent, free supply that never runs out and never costs another cent. I want to be precise here because accuracy matters more than hype on this channel. Roasted chicory and dandelion root tea is not chemically identical to coffee. Coffee contains caffeine and chlorogenic acids that produce a distinct pharmacological effect. Chicory and dandelion create their dark color and bitter flavor through entirely different chemical pathways. In most contexts, this blend cannot legally be labeled as coffee because regulatory definitions require actual coffee beans. What it can accurately be called is a natural, plant-based, caffeine-free beverage with a coffee-like flavor and a set of bioactive compounds that coffee simply does not contain. In some ways, that makes it more interesting, not less. Now consider the long-term trajectory. Remember those climate projections from the opening. 56% of Arabica growing land will be lost by 2050. Nearly 80% of the land in the hottest and driest coffee zones will become unsuitable within 25 years. Brazil's 2025 Arabica crop already came in 5% lower than expected. The USDA has predicted a global coffee deficit for 2025 and 2026. Retail coffee prices climbed throughout 2025, and major roasters including Illy announced further increases heading into 2026. The supply chain that $245 billion depends upon is being dismantled by the climate, one growing season at a time. Chicory does not need the tropics. It grows in temperate climates, in poor soil in zones 3 through 10. Dandelion grows on every continent except Antarctica. Neither requires irrigation infrastructure. Neither is vulnerable to coffee leaf rust, coffee berry borer, or any of the tropical diseases that devastate coffee plantations. Neither needs to be shipped across oceans in refrigerated containers. There is one final detail worth sitting with. In 2025, as Arabica futures exceeded $4 per pound and analysts debated whether prices would ever return to pre-crisis levels, A researcher with the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, reflecting on the 50% land loss projection, stated plainly that the Arabica market is extremely threatened. Rising demand, shrinking land. There will be coffee in 2050, he said, but it will be of lower quality and it will cost more. 5,000 years of cultivation history, over 150 clinical trials, 160 years of continuous use in one of America's most iconic restaurants. 2 plants that grow on 6 continents, require no maintenance, cost nothing after the first season, and produce a beverage that most people cannot distinguish from the real thing. The knowledge is available. The plants are waiting. The coffee corporations will not mention these roots. The supplement aisle will not feature them. The morning news segments sponsored by coffee brands will never bring them up. But the plants do not care about sponsorships or quarterly revenue targets. They care about sun and soil and spreading. Chicory has been doing this for 5,000 years. Dandelion has been doing it longer. Long after every coffee brand on your shelf has been repackaged, acquired, or forgotten, those 2 roots will still be pushing through the crack in your driveway, waiting for you to finally pay attention. What happens next depends entirely on who is listening. Subscribe to Garden Explained with Harry and hit the bell so you never miss what we uncover next.